Council and Committee, I'd like to call this Council and Committee meeting to order. Before we proceed further, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are the beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect. And the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island. Madam Acting Clerk, the roll call, please.
Your Worship, all members of Council are present.
So I have a few announcements, some of which were just handed to me. I'll start by saying that there is an addendum this evening. We have a delegation under Corporate and Community Services with respect to a proposal by Dan Favreau. We also have a closed session item added to the agenda. That's with respect to 50 Gilmore Road. With respect to the announcements, I want to start by congratulating our clerk, Peter Todd, and his wife, Atia, on the birth of their daughter, Rakia, on June the 7th. And I understand that both mother and child are in good health. And so congratulations to Peter and Akia. One more child to eventually create further capacity problems at our school. But we love it, and the more the merrier. This month is, of course, high school graduation for all of the high schools that service our community, and they start with the graduation ceremony at Fort Erie International Academy on Wednesday, June the 12th. They go then to the Niagara Christian Collegiate graduation on Saturday, June the 15th. Then the graduation ceremony for Lakeshore Catholic High School, which is on Tuesday, June the 25th. And on Thursday, June the 27th, the Greater Fort Erie Secondary School. On behalf of council, I want to wish all of the graduates success in their future endeavors and congratulate them on their achievements to date. Hard to believe, but I actually graduated once. That was probably, I don't know, 100 years ago.
School shut down, isn't it?
That particular school is closed. I graduated and they figured they better not let it happen again. With respect to some public events, there is a Sugar Bowl Splash Spray Pad grand opening, which is taking place on Wednesday, June the 19th. That's at 5 p.m., of course, at the Sugar Bowl, and that's a pretty exciting event as that park is being reconstructed. And then I was also asked by staff to make reference to the fact that we are going through our official plan, and there is background information that will be available to the public. They're reaching out at a number of community events as follows. June the 29th at the Ridgeway Market from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. July the 3rd at the Stevensville Market from 2 to 6 p.m. July the 4th at Crystal Beach from 2 to 6 p.m. On July 6th at Ridge Fest, and that will be all day from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. And then the Crystal Beach Supper Market on July the 11th. That's at Waterfront Park, and that will be from 4 to 9 p.m. So I think that covers my announcements for this evening, with the exception of on Saturday, June the 22nd, the Bridgeburg BIA is doing a Welcome to Summer event, and that will be running all day on Jarvis Street. There will be food vendors, there'll be music, there will be other entertainment, and I understand that one of the major hosts will be Councillor George McDermott, who will be welcoming people with a smile. So hopefully the weather will be good, and there'll be a good turnout for that on Jarvis Street. That takes us then to declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any? There being none, that then takes us to notices of upcoming public meetings and open houses. First one is a proposed combined official plan zoning bylaw amendment and revised draft plan of subdivision, which will take, it's relative to property on Netherby Road, known as Black Creek Signature Phase 2. And that public meeting will take place on Monday, June the 24th, 2024, here in the council chambers at 6 p.m. I presume that the information report with respect to that will be available prior to that time. We also have a public meeting with respect to the 6 Mile Creek Flooding Municipal Class EA, and that will be taking place at the Crystal Ridge Library, Monday, June the 24th, 2024, from 5 to 7 p.m. There are no public meetings this evening, which means I will hand the Planning and Development Services over to Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excuse me. There are no presentations and delegations. The first report is PDS 40-2024, extension of draft plan approval, Fort Erie Hills subdivision. Open for discussion. Councillor Dubanow.
I was just moving it.
Oh, you're moving, okay. So it's open for discussion. Your Worship.
Yeah, I just had a few questions, and I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to provide these to the staff in advance, but I had questions such as how actively are they working? I mean, how many conditions are there that are outstanding? And where are we in terms of the work that they're doing?
Don't worry.
It's my understanding, Your Worship, that they have come in for a pre-consultation. The current subdivision includes the two sections to it. One is the easterly section and one is the westerly. Currently, the applicant is working on the easterly section. They are coming in with an application. And as far as regarding the conditions that needs to be met, it's my understanding they would be revising the plan, so the conditions would be revised. And regarding the westerly portion, they are going to be working on that project with the Bridgeburg secondary plan.
Thank you. I noticed that in the draft conditions, there's a reference to sidewalks, but I didn't notice a reference to sidewalks on Thompson Road. And this development, at least the western portion, does front on Thompson Road, and there is an access road in from Thompson. If there isn't a condition that provides that, we can amend the conditions, can we not?
Yes, Your Worship, we can, council can amend that.
Okay, and I'm looking at condition 13 in particular, which is part of Appendix 5, which makes reference to a 1.5 meter sidewalk on the north side of Phipps Street, the south side of Bowen Road, and I believe that south side of Bowen Road would be the existing road allowance that runs to the north of the parcel. My understanding is that road is going to be opened, Ms. Dilwaria, Bowen Road.
Your Worship, it's my understanding that they are not planning to reconstruct, open that Bowen Road, and that's the reason they would be coming in with a revised application that would have no access on Bowen Road.
So,
But that would be a part of the future application.
okay, so the approved plan shows a road, Street G, coming in off of Bowen Road, and then there's a Street F that also comes off of Bowen Road. And if we go to the westerly portion of this development, Street A, then would be the only access point into all of those units in the westerly phase, And that's fairly significant, and it also, that means that there's not only those units that are shown, but I think there's a block for maybe an apartment building, which would, that seems to me to be problematic. Not having Bowen Road open and having just one point of access from the west, from Thompson Road. In any event, now that we have a tree bylaw, would that require an update to the tree saving plan?
Yes, Your Worship, they would be working on it.
And do we know if there's been any further consultation with the Niagara District School Board?
It's my understanding when they would be submitting a new application, we would be circulating that application to both the school boards, the district school board and Catholic board, and we would be getting comments from them.
Because if this development eventually proceeds, it's going to create further school capacity issues, I believe. And since we're working with a Bridgeburg North development, secondary plan, there could be further developments further to the north, which means there's going to be a lot of potential children living in these new housing units. So does this have to be passed this evening? Could we put this over to June the 24th and deal with it then, in case there's any further revisions to conditions that should be considered?
We could defer that because we have given them the temporary extension till June, I believe, end of June. That would be council's choice.
Well, I'm willing to listen to others, but Chair, I think that we probably should have a further look at some of these conditions. So I'll wait to see if there's anybody else that wants to speak.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. I agree with the mayor. My only question is, why would there not be an opening not on Fifth Street? Thompson and Phipps.
Could councillor please repeat her question?
Why would there not be access to this new development, both on Thompson Road and on Phipps Street?
So I would just like to mention, this is the draft plan that has been approved by council. The only reason the applicant is requesting an extension is because they would be coming in with a revised plan on the eastern side, and even the westerly portion of that draft plan would be revised. So the plan that we see before us would be revised at a later date. And we are actively working with the applicant to get those revisions. So this is just to facilitate that we can work with the applicant and get the plans, a new application facilitated. That's the only reason we have these draft plan extended, because the plan is expiring. And we have only given them temporary extension, which is till June 25th.
And I thank you. I fully appreciate that. But now that we're having another look at it, isn't this the time to say, okay, we have some concerns? Like, I mean, this was brought up, how many years ago? Wasn't that recent, was it? That we looked at it before?
2017.
Well, yeah, that's 7 years. Things have changed. I'm just thinking that I don't want another situation like we have in Black Creek, where access is a major issue because, we didn't have enough. We didn't kind of see the big picture coming down the street. No pun intended.
Do you have any comments?
We can definitely look into that, if the future plan would have access on Phipps.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Your Worship, would you like to?
Yeah, I'd like to move that this be deferred to the June 24th council meeting, and that in the meantime, we get some further information relative to what revisions to the westerly portion of this might look like, because that covers some of the things that I'm concerned about. And then in the meantime, I can have some further discussions, or all of us can have some further discussions if we wish with the planners. Don't need to, it's a committee.
Okay. Call the question, call the motion. So, with respect to the recommendation as amended?
No, it's deferred. We've just deferred it.
Okay, fine. The next report is PDS 41-2024, Bill 250, the Planning Statute Act 2023, and Bill 162, Get It Done Act 2024. Can I have someone move? Councillor Noyes. Open for session. Councillor Noyes.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, that basically everything they changed back, and we're happy with the change.
Ms. Delwaria.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's correct. Your understanding is correct, yes.
Your Worship.
Yeah, I just needed clarification. On page 2 of the report, there's a reference to 2 modifications. One, number 40, which added a parcel to the urban boundary, and one modification, number 35 and 43. At the bottom of the paragraph that dealt with both of those, it referred to the requested modification was approved by the province. But there were 2 modifications. Were both of them approved? That is, that parcel that was put into the urban boundary has been taken out, and the other policies, I think, have also been removed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, call the recommendation. All in favor? Carried. So PDS 42-2024, revisions to the secondary plan priority list, including removal of 171 Gorham Road. Can I get a mover? Councillor Flagg. Any discussion? Your Worship?
Yeah, I'd just like to get a little bit of clarification here. So the region takes the position that there's no need for a secondary plan because it's a greenfield and because there are secondary plans around it. Is that basically what they're saying?
Madam Chair, that's my understanding, but we have Mr. Hare here who can throw more light on that.
Yes, essentially, they'll be looking at conforming to the Crystal Beach secondary plan instead of doing a brand-new secondary plan from scratch.
So these lands aren't included in the Crystal Beach secondary plan, are they?
No, they would not. They would ultimately be a site-specific official plan amendment, but they would have to create policies that would align with the Crystal Beach secondary plan.
So there will be some process from here to whenever they're given approval to proceed?
Yes, there is in one of the appendix, it outlines appendix number 2. It is the process that they are to follow, which is that alternative process that has been created by us in the region.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. I just wondered the order. How did we come up with that particular order? Again, just in my mind, I'm thinking we've had a lot of discussion about the Walden Garrison neighborhood the last few months, and now that's 4th on the list.
I can answer that. This order was set by council on December 11th of last year.
I guess I got my answer. Thank you.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a question further to the mayor's with respect to the Crystal Beach secondary plan. And this location of property is, yes, within the ward boundary of Crystal Beach, but many would also identify it as being very much Ridgeway. Not looking to enter into that debate, but would they have to have any regard for the Ridgeway neighborhood plan?
Look through it, we did compare both secondary plans because of the age and how relevant or recent the Crystal Beach one is. We felt that it would align more with Crystal Beach, but again, this is at the sort of the conflux of the two secondary plans. So yes, there's a few policies in the Ridgeway that they should take in consideration.
Okay, and I appreciate the answer, thank you.
Your worship.
Yeah, so that's somewhat comforting, but I'd like to make sure that our staff maintains a handle on this and does, in fact, because for all intents and purposes, people who know the area would think that's Ridgeway. I know that there's been ward boundaries shifted around and what have you, and I know that the Crystal Beach Ward Councillor does an excellent job in that area. And I take nothing away from you, but I do think that we should be looking at both of those. And particularly insofar as, you know, the region, I don't have a lot of, let me be careful, let me be careful about what I say. I don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in the depth of knowledge of regional staff with respect to the things that are happening in Fort Erie, including their own infrastructure. And I've been banging this drum. I know some of you are probably getting tired of hearing it, but this is a large development, and it will have an impact on the community. It will have an impact on their infrastructure. I don't know how people think cars get in and out of Ridgeway and Crystal Beach from the QEW. If you're at the region, I presume it's by helicopter, hovercraft, who knows. So I would urge the staff, our staff, to make sure that they stay on top of it and make sure that nothing is being missed that's important as we go through this process. And again, I don't want to, school capacity is a major concern. We've got a school that was built for 500 students. It's got well over 700 students, and there's no indication that those numbers are going down. In fact, they just went up one on Friday. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, and just one comment, you know, further to the mayor's comments about the schools, but also vehicular traffic up the Sodom Road corridor. But I brought up the secondary plan because I do share the same opinion of the mayor that I think they are overlapping in some respect and certainly in people's minds. So I welcome the comments he made, and I know staff have heard. So thank you.
Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I want to echo on what Councillor Lewis and the mayor had just said with regard to vehicle capacity. And I know just from having conversations with councillors that there are challenges getting in to that end of the municipality. We basically have one road in and out from the QEW. And anyone who's driven through downtown Stevensville during the morning knows it's very hard to make a left turn off Eagle Street and other things. So this isn't just an issue of Ridgeway. There's an upstream issue that is affecting other areas of the community. So I'm just going to say this to get it on record. With respect to the region, I think we need to have a real serious conversation about bypassing Stevensville. The region can figure out how they want to do it, how they want to tie it into the roads, but this is really not going to be viable, having essentially a two-lane, one-way, one in each direction road through an old downtown type community to carry the traffic in through an area that's experiencing and will experience even more unprecedented growth. So if the region doesn't already have that on their radar, they're already behind as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just saying this to get it on the record. That is a conversation we need to have. The time is now, if it isn't already starting. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dubanow. Any other comments? Right, can I get a vote on the?
Staff.
Okay. Call for the question. Okay. All in favor? All right. Carried. Next is PDS 43-2024. It's an information report on Bill 134, changes to the definition of an affordable residential unit in the Development Charges Act 1997. Can I get a motion? Councillor Lewis? Councillor Dubanow?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm glad we have the opportunity to kind of look at this information, at least what the province is defining as affordable. I know that there's going to be, debate and kind of some question over what we may perceive, what the province is. I know there's a lot of data that goes into this, but I found it rather interesting looking at the number for what they determine to be a affordable home for purchase, whether it's a condo unit, a freehold town, or something. And I think it was, just off the top of my head, rounding here, I think it was around $340,000, which, in looking at them in the context of those of us who are familiar with pre-2016 Fort Erie, that was a lot of money then, and now you can't buy anything, not even a wartime house on Aberdeen for that amount of money. But there have been, I'm keeping an eye on real estate in the region and other things. There have been some recent kind of interesting kind of small units for purchase as actual, like, you own it rather than rental units, coming in under $400,000 in some areas. So I know this is, it doesn't meet the definition of affordable, but we're starting to see some ideas of attainability, and I'm glad that we have this to give us a guideline on what is now defined as affordable. Anything that's within that range but above it, we can look at as attainable. I think it gives us a good template of what we need to look for. But I look at that. My first house here in Fort Erie, and it wasn't that long ago, was $125,000, and you're not buying that house now for much less than $5,000. So things have drastically changed. I'm just glad we have something to look at, so it gives us something to look for and where we're targeting it. So those were just my comments. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. My question is, okay, so we don't probably have a lot of houses that are going to be over the 324,000 for sale. But if we did, how would it affect us? I'm just wondering if Jonathan can fill us in, and how would it going to affect the development charges and things like that?
Through you, Chair. PDS may have more analysis on that from that release. We haven't undertaken that yet, but I would defer to her otherwise.
Madam Chair, it's my understanding with the new legislation coming in, the affordable units, if it's at that price, it would be exempt from DCs. But I would like Mr. Hare to provide more information. Yeah.
So sort of echoing what Jonathan was saying, we haven't done the in-depth calculation to show how much potential loss that would mean to the municipality. But as Director Dwyer was saying, if they meet this threshold that's in Appendix 3, they would be exempt from DCs, parkland, and community benefits charge, subject to them entering into an agreement that those units have to remain affordable for a 25-year period.
Thank you, through Councillor Christensen. Just to expand on some of the issues with respect to the bulletin being released. So the bulletin does identify, based on the Fort Erie income, the sort of testing that CMHC places on affordable units. So the amounts that are listed as affordable would be based on a calculation for household incomes in Fort Erie, which is different, and the schedule in the report shows a comparison to other municipalities. The challenge with the numbers as they're published, and it's kind of to some of the comments Councillor Dubanow has mentioned, is those are the numbers that would be required to meet the eligibility for CMHC funding under affordable housing. And so the business case for building affordable housing becomes more challenging when the distance of the market value and this value become further apart, as Councillor Dubanow was describing. So It's great that we have the information, and it will take some more analysis on our part just to take a deeper dive into it. But unless the market can build homes or offer apartments in that affordable space, they wouldn't be eligible for the development charge exemption. And it may be difficult for them to reach the business case that allows them to do that, because they have to offset those in the multi-residential, for example. They would have to offset it with higher rent on the market side in order to attract funding to be able to offer an affordable rate at that. So definitely more work, and certainly something on council's radar in terms of government relations around affordable housing funding coming from levels of government provincially and federally. So I hope that provided a bit more context to the bulletin.
Thank you, Mr. McQueen. Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. That's kind of where I thought this was going, and I don't think we're really going to see, unfortunately, we're not going to see a lot of houses that are going to meet that target. Considering, I think, our development charges for a new house, for a new build, again, it's one price fits all, right? Isn't it around, between you, we add the region, you add us, starts at around $60,000. I could be wrong a little bit this way or that, but again, that's added to that's part of the purchase price. So you figure that's 60,000 plus the price of the lot. You're lucky if you can find a lot anymore for 100,000. So you're already at 160,000 before you even do anything. So I don't think this is a reasonable. It's nice to say this is the affordable number, but it's just not likely to happen. Thank you.
Councillor Dubanow?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo what Councillor Noyes had mentioned. I have no illusions. Like, I see this number, and I think it's good to have as a benchmark of what they look at. But I don't think we're suddenly going to have a flood of, new residential construction that meets these or meets this criteria. It is definitely going to be a challenge. And certainly when it comes to our development charges and other things, there's an impact to the municipality as well if we do meet these targets. It's one of those 6 of one, half a dozen of another situations. We're getting a benefit to the community, but it's costing us money through our development charge reserve. But I look at this, and it kind of gives us a template and something to look at and something to aspire to. We may not see new residential construction that's in the $340,000 range, but we may see ones that are close to it, that are more attainable. We might see, like I said, I'm seeing some numbers, just north of here, 399. It gives us something to look to, and when we have developers who come to the municipality and they say we want to provide something that's attainable or affordable, at least we have a number now, and it's not anecdotal. It's a number that we can defend, and we can say, this is the affordable number. You want your DCs waived, you have to meet this number here. If you're above it, then you go from there. I think it's beneficial. It's definitely not, it's not something that everyone's going to agree on. Certainly I have some questions, again, knowing that what my house cost, even the house that I have now, what I paid for it to build in 2016 relative to what it's worth now. This has been really difficult for Niagara to absorb, but I'm glad we're at least getting an idea of where to go from here, and we're not just pulling things out of the air. I don't want to give, it's been a challenge with some of the provincial legislation. I don't want to give them too much credit or sound like I am. But this at least gives us something to work with, which is better than having nothing at all. And hopefully we have something to kind of, we get some stuff out of this and have some good discussions. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Your Worship, and then Mr. Jones.
No, go to Mr. James.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide just one brief update. So the report did comment on other related changes such as Bill 185, the Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act. That was passed by the province and received royal assent on Thursday, June 6th. So that was part of a theme of what we discussed during the budget and as well during the DC study, bringing forward that. It does roll back some of the changes that were brought forward in Bill 23, particularly in the province's attempt to make municipalities whole. So with the passage of that, it does give municipalities in Ontario latitude to immediately make those changes where applicable. So we'll be working with particularly our regional counterparts to try and align some of and implement those changes. The largest of which is the removal of the mandatory phase-in, which we had shown during capital time as being a large impact on our own long-term reserves. We have a number of existing permits that are pending issuance that will honor the earlier rate, but others incoming certainly will be communicating with the stakeholders and the groups that we had communicated with during the DC study to make them aware of that. You may also recall that with Bill 23, studies became ineligible, so those are also now returning with this bill. Things like our master plans, such as our water and wastewater servicing master plans. We've been given 6 months to go and study the impact of that and add that back into the rates as well across the province. So that'll be a change we'll expect sometime this fall as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen, Your Worship.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate the comments made by some of the councillors, and certainly this provides us at least with some solid ground with respect to what is affordable and what isn't. I happened to be discussing another matter with a developer earlier today and talked about affordable purpose-built rentals, and he was familiar with this data because there's also a report on the region's Corporate Services Committee meeting tomorrow with respect to this, or maybe it's on the Planning Committee. His comment to me was that it's going to be very difficult to build affordable purpose-built rental units and get a break on development charges at these prices. And you can do it if you increase the price of your market rental units, but then you may be pricing yourself out of the market. I think Councillor Noyes is quite correct. And if one looks at Appendix 3, you'll see that Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, and Welland actually have a lower threshold for affordable purchase, singles, semis, and row housing. And I got to believe that the land is more expensive, at least in Niagara Falls and St. Catharines. So how does that happen? It isn't going to happen. We're not going to get affordable housing units unless there's some financial assistance coming from the federal government, and they've put a lot of money into this. I think that the provincial government is thinking somehow they're going to be able to finesse their way through without putting the amount of money that they're going to have to put into this, or get involved themselves in a bit more of an assertive fashion in making sure that we have the affordable units that we need. We've been inundated recently with developers wanting to build townhouses. Why? Because it's faster, they can get into the ground faster, they can put more units on a piece of property, but none of these are affordable. There hasn't been one affordable townhouse that I'm aware of, but that's where we should be getting and insisting upon affordable housing units, the townhouses, trying to get an apartment building constructed. We will be assisting. We have put aside money to assist with respect to affordable housing units. We just haven't received an uptake yet, but hopefully that will be forthcoming. We can try to build our way and provide the supply that will eventually reduce housing prices, but that's going to take a long time for the people that we would really like to see in these housing units, which is young people. And so young people from the GTA, Councillor Dubanow has pointed this out to me before, maybe even Councillor Lewis, young people from the GTA, maybe they can afford $700,000, $800,000 for a condo unit or a townhouse. But the people that live here in town originally, they cannot. And I'm interested in the people that are living here, the seniors who want to move out of their home to free that up in the market. But they've got to have a place that they can move to that's affordable. These are great numbers. The question is, can anybody build anything that's going to meet this? And this is why smaller lots, smaller houses, non-luxury finishes, maybe they don't need a garage. I think the builders are going to have to come to that realization. And Madam Chair, if our planners have advice that they can provide to us on how we move developers in that direction, how we take a much stricter stand on what we need in this community, which has been identified for us, I don't see our predicament changing much. I don't see many affordable housing units being built. Sorry to be so gloomy, but that's just the reality.
Councillor Noyes.
Just, I'm gonna throw this out there because I don't think I saw it on the report. If someone owned a property already, like have had a vacant lot, or demolished a house, and they could build for under the 323,000, would they then get forgiven the development charges and all that? Like, would that work?
Mr. Warrior.
I can try answering that question, but, so if there was a house on a property and they demolished it to construct a new one, they would get some DC credits. And if it's an affordable one, I believe they would be, if the credits, let's say the credit is for $100 and the DC is $200, then they would get the credit, but they still have to pay that 100. But if it's affordable, I think they would be exempt from that. But I would like to defer that to Mr. Jensen or Erin, if they could throw light on that.
Yes, any applicable DC would be netted off against demolition credits. There are provisions for that they have a limited term. It's 5 years under our current DC bylaw. In terms of the impacts to the existing rates with these new measures, I would point to Aaron if you want to speak to that, if you have anything to add.
Considered, so we haven't really looked into that at all.
I'm just thinking, there's a number of like, people own lots and they're not building. And I'm thinking, yeah, they may not, if you had to add the price of the lot onto that and the development charges, you're looking at a savings of about, let's say $100,000 for the lot and $60,000 for development charges. You're basically, that $500,000 house now becomes $323,000, if you can do it for that price. So I'm just thinking, that may be a market that people are gonna be looking for, like severing a lot or something like that. So I'm just curious. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. The next is report PDS 44-2024, Brownfields Program Application for 3819 Hibbard Street. And I, Councillor McDermott. Are there any questions, comments? Call the recommendation. All in favor? PDS 46-2024, proposed draft plan of vacant land condominium recommendation report for 3770 Hazel Street. Can we get a mover? Councillor Lewis. Are there any comments, questions? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you. I did have a chance to touch base with Mrs. DeWall and Amika. Sorry, I have a hard time with the little at the end. But anyway, that it's unfortunate, and I understand that it's next to almost impossible for those on Bellevue Street, that it's going to be the backyards that are going to be facing Bellevue, but I do know there's going to be a fence and some greenery and things like that that can maybe make the backyards a little bit more private, I guess is the word I'm looking for, because I think most of us like our privacy. But again, I wish it was something else, but I understand that the person who owns the property wants to do A. I'd like them to do B, which is an apartment building, but they don't seem to agree with the council. So anyway, so I am going to support this, but again, I just want to go on the record. I think there should have been an apartment building.
Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just echoing those same thoughts. So I have a real difficult time with this application, and I understand the zoning is already in place. That perhaps is a oversight or maybe something we should have dealt with when this came in place in 2013, 2014. I have a huge concern with the built form. you know, we're discussing affordable housing here and purpose-built rental units and other things, and I'm under no illusions what the target market is for these. They look like very high-end, something, to be quite honest, that you'd see out in Niagara on the Lake, not what you would typically see in Fort Erie. Perhaps things are changing in this community, that's fine, but we also do have the housing concerns and pressures as well. I know, just going back from memory, you know, going back 10 years ago, the general discussion and the intent, perhaps it wasn't enumerated within the bylaw itself, but I know back during that time, the general discussion was, you know, the same need 10 years ago for apartments exists now. This isn't anything new. Perhaps the market at that time was a little different. Perhaps we were more looking to bring things in rather than having the door knocked down. So maybe that might have had something to do with it. But when push comes to shove, you know, I look at this. I look at our nodes where we're looking for, you know, to get some density in place and address these needs. I think, you know, I look at the Garrison Road situation where it was something that was, in my opinion, a missed opportunity. But at least in that context, it was, you know, something that may not have been affordable, but we at least had some accessible units. We at least had, you know, an applicant who seemed to at least understand the need for, you know, different price points in our community. I don't feel that any of this is being addressed. And, you know, I always look at this council, I look at our staff, you know, we have some great collaboration with our developer community. They come here, you know, even during PDS, you know, my apologies, the Planning and Development Services Subcommittee meeting. We have a lot of good discussion, you know, a lot of back and forth with the developers, you know, what we're willing to, you know, approve here at council, what staff are willing to work with. The developer, they make the numbers and stuff. I don't think we've had that same reception with this particular application. And in fact, we even had some requests from the developer recently with regard to the sidewalk that, you know, my head hit the roof when I saw that. You know, what are they pushing here? What are they looking for? You know, we don't eliminate sidewalks from plans in this community. In fact, we have gone to bat to ensure that we are putting sidewalks in situations where individuals may not want them. So what kind of message are we sending to the community if we allow sidewalks to be removed? I know staff aren't supporting that. I was a little taken aback by why they even asked for it in the first place. So I have a lot of concern about this. I'm going to leave the rest of my comments, if any, for after other councillors have had some opportunity, or members of council have had some opportunity to speak and offer their thoughts. But I don't think this is, in my opinion, I'm not willing to approve this as it is. I think a lot more discussion. Even if they want to keep the built form, fair enough, that's fine, but they have not even addressed some of our concerns, mentioning during the information report, you know, why are they facing internally rather than to Bellevue Boulevard? Why are we building a contained community with the center park rather than trying to integrate this into the existing community and make them a part of Ridgeway? I don't want to see something with a wrought iron fence against it, just like on Erie Road, which I think is one of the biggest mistakes this community ever made. And I don't want to see another development go in that's fenced off in every direction with 2 or 3 access points that are controlled potentially with something in the future. I have a lot of concerns about this. So I'm looking forward to hearing what other councillors have to say if they have any suggestions. But I'm with everything that I've said in the past, it makes it really difficult for me to support this now with what's in front of me. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My personal thoughts aside, I am wondering about Appendix 5 and Section 34 that discusses, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong one. Appendix 557 discusses the region's corporate waste collection, and that there's a number of units that will not be able to get waste collection because the internal roads are not adequate to do so. I'm wondering if our fire department would share the same concerns with that, and if that's been looked into. It would surprise me if Waste Management has a concern that the fire may not.
Ms. Delwaria?
Yes, Madam Chair, through you to the councillor. The concerns they have with the garbage disposal, that it's my understanding it would be a private collection. And we have circulated the application to the fire department. It's my understanding they had no concerns. But Mr. Vanderveen is here and he can speak to that as well.
Mr. Vanderveen?
Can everybody hear me? Yeah, so what Ms. Delaria said was accurate. It's been circulated to the fire department. No issues are raised. The majority of the units will be subject to waste collection and recycling service by the region, but there are a few units, as you mentioned, that will need to have alternative measures for garbage collection.
I've got a couple of questions. Mr. Vanderveen can sit down for the moment.
Oh, sure.
So this is a condominium proposal. It's not a rezoning. It's not an official plan amendment. It's not a plan of subdivision. It's a condominium application. So in the past, we have had innumerable developments which have had roads that the property fronts on. And in many of these, we've required the road to be, or even half the road, to be upgraded to semi-urban or urban standard. I don't see any of that here, and I'm wondering why neither Bellevue nor Hazel is being affected by this.
Ms. Delwaria?
Madam Chair, through you to His Worship, it's my understanding that there is not a policy in the town that would require all the roads to be urbanized. And in this situation, we had the pre-con done a few years back, and at that time, it was not mentioned that these two roads would have to be urbanized. And because of those two reasons, we did not put that as a condition.
So, Madam Chair, I don't want to argue with the planner. I'm not a planner. I'm just the mayor. And if that's the case, if we have no policy, one wonders then why any developer is agreeing to upgrade a road. So I'd like to get a firmer response on that so that we know going forward what our position is with respect to roads where development is taking place. Since we've done it in the past, I'd like to get a firm reason why we couldn't do it here. That's one. I understand as well that maybe when the pre-consultation took place, staff didn't request that type of thing. I'm beginning to hear, in my mind, too frequently, that things were said by previous staff or pre-consultation meetings were said by this staff, and things were, took place, and the developer went off and went forward. I understand that the staff is our surrogate. They're our agents, and so when they take a position, when they talk about issues, to some extent, I suppose we have to take that into account. But there's got to be a point at which the council is responsible for the development that takes place. We have to be responsible for the things that are taking place in our community and how they may affect the people who live in the community. So that I'm a little sympathetic to staff on one hand, but on the other hand, the buck stops with us. And at some point, I think we have to take a position on some of these issues. Had another few comments with respect to this development. And as Councillor Dubanow has pointed out, this is a great development. It might be really attractive in some upscale community. Not that Fort Erie shouldn't have upscale parts, and it does. But this doesn't address any of our needs. We've been going through an official plan process. We've had an update to our housing needs, and we know that we need purpose-built rentals, we need affordable units, we need smaller units, we need seniors accommodations, and we need long-term housing. We're getting some of that long-term from the new Gilmore Lodge. Seniors, if we can get Lyons Douglas Heights moving forward, we'll get some there, but nowhere near what the need is in this community. Smaller, I haven't met a developer yet, well, we've met one, who's interested in smaller. Most of them are interested in bigger. These are 2-story townhouses being built, 93 of them, on one parcel of land. It looks like it's going to be very expensive just looking at the finishes that are being proposed. And so they're neither small, nor are they affordable, nor are they purpose-built rental, none of which we need. I would like to think that as we go forward, and if not on this development, the very next pre-consultation meeting we have with the developer, I would like to think, Madam Chair, that our staff will let the developer know these are the housing needs in Fort Erie, and find some way to utilize the policies that we already have in existence to make sure that the developer is steered in a direction that we're interested in. They're not miracle workers, I understand that, and they can't compel somebody to do something they don't want to do. And it's pretty clear that this developer has been focused on townhouses from day one, and this is the plan that he's putting forward, and this is what he's going to do come hell or high water. And I don't think his agent left any doubt of how she felt about the whole thing. And for me to say that I don't think this particular developer cares about what else is going on in Fort Erie, I think I'm on pretty safe ground. He doesn't have to care what's going on in Fort Erie, but we do. We're the councillors. We're the ones who are responsible to the residents. This particular type of application doesn't even permit public input as of right. I mean, neighbors could come in as delegates and they could say, we want to speak to this, just like the planner did last week or 2 weeks ago. But they've been taken out of this process in terms of a public meeting under the Planning Act. Why? I believe it's because the provincial government believes that the council will protect the public's interests. And, okay, that's great. So the public's been taken out of it. What about the developer? The developer still gets a chance to take a crack at this. And if there's an appeal of any decision that we make here, it won't be an appeal by the public. That's not permitted. There is an appeal permitted by the property owner. Okay, I understand that to some extent, but it's half fair. It's half fair because the developer, if we side with the developer, the public's out to lunch because we're their agents. We're the ones who are speaking on their behalf. If we tell the developer, no, we're on behalf of the community, we're telling you this can't take place, the developer gets to appeal that. And it goes to a body that is, in my view, more sympathetic to development, particularly in view of the policies that are coming out of the provincial government. We've actually passed a resolution asking for the Ontario Land Tribunal or the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal or the Ontario Municipal Board, whatever it was called at the time, to be disbanded because it doesn't serve the purposes that I think are fair to the community. These types of developments that we're being faced with are great developments maybe for larger communities, but the policies that are emanating from Toronto, from Queen's Park, are policies that if there was any consultation, it would have been consultation with the large urban municipalities. Great. This would fit well in a large urban municipality. Does it fit into the smaller municipalities? Does it fit into the rural communities? No, but the policies are all the same, and that is a shortcoming of provincial policy. So, as an example, we have two gated communities in Fort Erie. One which is the leisure home park in Douglastown. One which was permitted over 30 years ago in Crystal Beach. should never have happened. During my tenure as mayor, there have been a couple of occasions where I've been asked whether I would support that type of development elsewhere in town. And after I stopped laughing, I had to tell the person, no, I wouldn't. There's no eyes on the street. There's no benefit to the community. So, Madam Chair, I'm building up to this. We don't have to make a decision on this until August the 21st. This is June the 10th. I'm not prepared to make a decision on this until there's some further discussion with the developer. And I will tell you right now, I won't make the amendment this evening, but when this comes back, because I'm going to move that it be deferred to the next committee meeting, which will be in July, I'm going to move that the houses that are located on Bellevue be required to face west, that is, face the street. There will be about a dozen driveways. If this was a single-family dwelling situation, there'd be at least a dozen driveways. And that way, there'll be no problem installing the sidewalk because there'll be plenty of room, because there'll be no need to worry about putting up a fence, putting up landscaping. They can face west. They'll have eyes on the street. And if the developer wants to put a fence and landscaping in the rear yards, which will be on the internal street, great. But I think that staff needs to be aware of the fact that this development is in jeopardy in terms of approval by this council, and that there are some changes that are going to be requested. And I'd also like to get a firm answer with respect to upgrading of that road, so I can contemplate whether we should be even looking at that as well. This is going to be, it's hard to imagine that a high-class development of this nature would want to be located on streets where there's open ditches. I don't get it. The other thing I just wanted to make a comment on is the report indicates that the subject lands are surrounded by the following uses: vacant to the north, vacant residential single-detached dwellings to the east, which are on Ridge Road, single-detached dwellings to the south. Well, in fact, there are 2 apartment buildings across Hazel Street, and there is a row, I think there are 2 blocks of townhouses, rental townhouses on Bellevue. So this is not accurate in itself. And I think that when we're dealing with these issues, the planners need to be focusing on every aspect of our policies that reflect on these developments. The information needs to be accurate. Sorry.
Your Worship, I think perhaps if you have an intent to move a deferral, that would probably be a good idea. The direction to staff.
My flight is almost finished. I just want to make sure that the planners, when they hear what council is thinking at a meeting, when they know what we're thinking in terms of the housing mix and what it is that the housing needs are, that they look at every policy that's available to them, maybe not provincial, maybe not regional, but local policies, and try to fit that into what we're thinking is going to be according to the strategic planning goal that deals with this sustainable and managed growth, and not necessarily be coming back with something that, in my view, isn't necessarily good managed growth for Fort Erie. So on those notes, and I hope that staff has sufficient to take to the developer and the developer's planner, I'd like to move that this report be deferred to the July 8th Council and Committee meeting for further information and for the staff to have further discussions with the developer.
Ms. Delwaria? Yeah.
Madam Chair, I just would like to mention a few things. Staff has tried to work with the developer the best we can. There are certain situations where the developer is agreeable to make those suggestions.
Okay, on a point of order, Madam Chair, this is a motion to defer, and it's not debatable, and it's not really, unless there's information in response to what we've asked for, I don't think there should be comment from staff.
Can we speak to the deferral?
No, it's non-debatable. So you have to decide on the point of order that I've made, which is that staff shouldn't be commenting on this.
Um, Okay, I'll call the question. We'll proceed to call the question.
Calling the question. All those,
So, the motion to defer. So, all in favor?
thank you.
Business, memorandum from Robin Schuken, Junior Development Planner, information regarding expansions to draft vision 0-1.
Yeah, Chair, I just wanted to speak to that. The report does point out quite correctly that I declared a pecuniary interest with respect to previous occasions when this matter came before council. At the time, I was a lawyer, and I had a client, and at the time, the owner who was shown for this property was Andrew Ferry. Now, I no longer have a client. I've been retired since the end of December 2022, and the owner is shown as, I think it's Brandon Ferry. So it's a different owner, and I no longer have a pecuniary interest, and that's why I dealt with this or spoke to this at the last meeting. Just wanted to make that clear.
Are there any other questions, discussion? Okay, so it's just a memo. Do we need to receive? No?
I don't think so, do we?
No? We have to move to receive? Or?
Just receive it, you don't have to do anything.
Okay, the,
So we're moving that to receive?
no, we just received.
How do we receive it if it? How do we receive it if we don't say anything?
Sorry, motion to receive.
Yeah, so I'll move that we receive it.
All in favor? Next is the business status report. Councillor Noyes?
Other new business or inquiries?
New business inquiries, sorry. Yes.
And I'm thinking it fits here. I was confused whether it's here or someplace else. I'd like an update again on the situation with Wi-Fi and the internet on the Parkway. I don't think there's been a lot of progress on that. The last update I had was about 3 months ago, and they were running into trouble and they were looking for more money, or there's issues. But I don't think that has progressed yet, and I'm wondering if we can get an update on that. And my other inquiry is, I know we've brought this up, and I think the irony is that we just talked about Birdie School, which was closed, is that I wouldn't mind getting the school board to, both school boards, to give us an idea what their capacity is. Like, I mean, they know the schools, they know the number of desks, they know how many students they can hold. What is the capacity? Because we always get these boilerplate answers saying no problem, no problem, no problem. And so I would like to know what the different school boards' capacities are in the different areas.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Diana Kelly, my assistant, usually requests that at the beginning of the year and usually gets some information, but we can ask her to follow up. And then when we get the information, we can circulate that. So there's 4 schools, they have a number of students enrolled, they have capacity, and we'll ask them if they have some idea of what next year's capacity will be, because they're starting to get some indication of who's going to be enrolling for JK.
And again, this was both school boards, not just the one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I think we have more than 4 schools.
Yeah, okay. So are you asking that information be brought back?
Yeah, that's an inquiry.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any more new business inquiries? Okay. So the next is the business status report. there any questions? All right. This is the Planning and Development Services Committee completed business, so I turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christensen. Good job with a variety of interesting reports. That takes us to Infrastructure Services, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Infrastructure Services is now in session. There are no presentations or delegations. There are no reports, new business and inquiries from members of council. Being none, I will turn to the business status report. Are there any questions or comments with respect to that? Seeing none, I will turn it back over to you, Your Worship.
Very efficient, Councillor Lewis. That takes us then to Corporate and Community Services, Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Your Worship. Corporate and Community Services now in session. We have a couple of presentations this evening. I believe that Damien Burasek is on electronically. Is that correct? Perfect.
Good evening.
Good evening, Damien.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Damien Bernacek, and I'm a lawyer here with Colliers, speaking on behalf of our client, Garrison Road Self-Storage, the owner and taxpayer for the property located at 625 Garrison Road. And to speak in support of the recommendation from the town of Fort Erie's staff to refund Garrison Road Self-Storage for the overpayment of taxes for the 2023 taxation year, that being under the agenda item 10.2.2, and asking that council approve the refund in the amount of $15,233.73 to Garrison Road Self-Storage in accordance with Section 357 of the Municipal Act. By way of background, Garrison Road, 625 Garrison Road is a vacant land lot with some signage with commercial advertising. It's a property zoned highway commercial C3. The permitted uses of the property are commercial. The use of the property was commercial in 2023. Despite that, MPAC assessed the property and classified it as an industrial property. And as a result, the owner of 625 Garrison Road was paying taxes based on the industrial tax rate as opposed to the commercial tax rate. That resulted in the overpayment of taxes in the amount of $15,233.73 during the 23 taxation year. My team and I assisted the taxpayer to ensure that they are made whole and refunded the overpayment of taxes. And we filed an application with the town of Fort Erie on February 29th, 2024, asking that the town of Fort Erie factor in the error made by MPAC and the resulting overpayment. Section 357(1)(f) of the Municipal Act provides that where a situation like the one we have here arises, where a taxpayer overpays taxes due to a plain and obvious error made by MPAC, the municipality refunds the taxes in the year following. So we filed the application. The town of Fort Erie staff were most helpful and in communicating and in reviewing the application in a timely manner, and ultimately making a determination on that application to refund the overpayment of taxes. We support the recommendation from city staff, and barring any questions from council, we thank the council for the opportunity to speak and provide submissions in support of the recommendation put forward by staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burdick. Any questions from council members? We appreciate that you recognize our staff are outstanding here, and we'll be moving this shortly. Thanks for your attendance. That brings us to Mr. Favreau as a presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dan Leolino Favreau, born and raised Fort Erie, 960 Garrison Road, Fort Erie. So I'm just here to look at overturning the decision of some of the town staff, or defer it to June 24th for some further information and consideration. I'll pull up on the screen. So there's a proposal of some land of so let's see what this one does. Okay, oh, there we go. Thank you. So this is an example of the, I believe it's 12 by 40 foot digital billboard at the foot of the Peace Bridge coming into Fort Erie, Ontario, Canada. So it's seen by numerous visitors throughout our country of Canada, mainly Niagara. And so now, how do I get back out? Let's see. Top right. X out. Okay, thank you. X again. Okay. So there's the Fort Erie Legion and the Fort Erie, or the Ridgeway Lions Club. Another example of a Fort Erie business using the opportunity. So the proposal that I was putting forward to the town of Fort Erie is, if you take Garrison Road, and this is Spears Road, not showing on the page, the lands from Garrison and Spears going east are owned by the Favreau family, and there's a parcel of land that the town required to do the Craft Road extension, and we sold lots 31 and 32, which were 80 feet by 135. So out of the 80 feet, the town required 66 feet for the road, which left over 14 feet west of the 66 feet. So the guy upstairs did good there. So the 14 feet is a straight line from the Garrison to the rear, which is approximately 270 feet deep, which the sidewalk is in. There's no interference. It's a straight line. There's no sidewalk jig-jagging. It's one strip of 14 feet, which has no value to the town of Fort Erie. Excuse me. The other parcel, 16, 17, 18, 27, 26, 25 are owned by the Favreaus. And there's a parcel of land in the yellow, lots 22, 23, and 24 on Wellington Avenue, which became Wellesley Avenue, which is a road that's been closed. So this particular yellow property is without access or sewer or water. It's adjacent to the Favreau properties, making it a valuable property and useful for the development in Fort Erie, rather than presently it's full of dead trees. So there's no, it's a win-win for the town of Fort Erie. The property gets to be utilized, and the town of Fort Erie, I was offering $50,000 to go on the digital billboard in trade of the properties. So it'd be no cost to the town, but benefit. So an example, the Point Avenue Lighthouse could be on there advertising the War of 1812, the old Fort Erie reenactment, Prince of Wales, Father's Day racetrack. Mayor when Redekop mentioned about the different events that come up on during council meetings. You could advertise that. So I'm just asking that you guys reconsider the word no to this proposal. Is there any questions that, or any reason the town would require that 14-foot strip of the road that's already in of 66 feet? I don't see how the town would benefit owning it, but they would benefit by being at the advertising for the town of Fort Erie. I don't know if I'm making sense. For the value, the town keeps the 14 feet, which has no value, or they get $50,000 in advertising for the town of Fort Erie. Somebody must have a question, I hope.
Thanks, Mr. Driver.
You're welcome.
Any questions from members of council? Councillor Noyes?
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Favreau. What are you planning on advertising is on that, this, like you said, all different kind of events for Fort Erie? Are you basically going to be renting?
Well, I would leave it to your great staff from the EDT, Carrie Lee. She's wonderful, so she could work her magic for the town of Fort Erie, example, the Point Avenue Lighthouse, or any events that the town of Fort Erie would like to promote or make the public aware of. Like the War of 1812 at the old Fort Erie, you could advertise that event on the billboard. Whatever you wish, of course.
Okay, I'm just trying to get it in my head.
Yeah.
So if you had this property, you would put up a big billboard, and then, as you showed, I'm not saying big as a negative, just as the billboards that you showed, and you would then rent it out to different advertisers to place their ad there.
Well, actually, there was a billboard on that area of the property, but it was removed for some reason. But the billboard that I'm referring to is at the bottom of Queen Street, which is technically 68 Goddard Street. So the billboard is at the foot of the Peace Bridge, basically. So you would be entering Canada, and you'd be Fort Erie, you'd be entering, and you would see the town of Fort Erie's choices of advertising.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's not located on the garrison. It's located at a different property.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, councillors? Yep. No. Councillor McDermott?
So you're interested in those two properties.
Yes.
Do you have any plans for those properties, should you have them?
Well, the 14 feet wouldn't be able to develop it, basically, but it's basically sitting there dormant for either the town of Fort Erie or going to the Favreau parcel, because there's nobody that could purchase it and develop it because of the frontage, and being on a highway, it would be impossible to get any permits or anything for development of that 14 feet. So it's just, don't know the right terminology, useless property to the town of Fort Erie. You're welcome. The other parcel that's landlocked with no sewer and water, that could be where the town of Fort Erie could help and use that property into something rather than have it sitting there only because of the adjacent owners being Favreau's. It has value to us, but technically you can only get there by a helicopter because there's no road or access to the property.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Favreau. Appreciate you being here tonight.
You're welcome. And I could also, to maybe help the other parts of Fort Erie, is donate, my dad's dad was in the First World War. I could make a donation of $2,500 to the Fort Erie Legion and $2,500 to the Fort Erie SPCA as part of this deal. Just to help Fort Erie out also. Yes, I guess anything, you guys understand the properties and understand where they are and the swap of 50,000 credit for advertising.
I think everybody's got it.
Sorry, got it? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Thanks.
We'll continue on to reports. 10.2.1 CAO report 06/2024 on the floor. Looking for a mover. Thank you, Your Worship. Any comments or input?
I apologize. So do I wait for an answer?
Just sit.
I
We're
see.
dealing with it now, Dan.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Any comments? Councillor McDermott, thank you.
So the Land Committee denied this request. I guess this question is to whoever, maybe it's the CAO who sits on here. Can you tell us what was the concern about the land swap in this case?
Mr. McQueen?
Through you to Councillor McDermott, just to clarify, it wasn't a swap of land. The proposal that was put forward to the Land Committee was for the exchange of those properties for advertising value at a sign at the base of the Peace Bridge. We did speak to it at Land Committee, and there was consensus among the staff that we don't have a requirement for advertising at the Peace Bridge, so we felt that that didn't add value to what our objectives were at this point in time, and the town had not made a decision about deeming those two properties as surplus properties at this time. And so that discussion got input from our professional staff, and it's our opinion that we don't believe that this is a viable request for us to bring forward for a recommendation to council, so we denied the request at this time.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. That brings us to 10.2.2 CS 04/2024. On the floor for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Dubanow. And a question, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just with respect to, and I'm going to support this recommendation. I mean, I trust staff have made the appropriate determination, but just I'm a little curious with respect to the presentation that we had earlier from I believe it's a realtor who's kind of representing this property. So originally, from what I understand, MPAC had declared this industrial land, even for taxation purposes, even though it was zoned C3, and my understanding is that this property is vacant, there's nothing on the property other than an advertising sign, kind of, I think it would be east of where Golden Nugget Bingo Hall is. So my question is twofold for staff, and whoever wants to answer this would probably be Mr. Jansen. A, do we determine property classification for taxation purposes, or does MPAC? And B, and planning staff may have to answer this question, under our own policies here, this right now, as I said, he's representing a storage company. Would we typically consider storage a commercial use or an industrial use? And I'm just wondering if maybe staff can give me some insight into that before I support the recommendation.
Mr. Jansen, do you want to take the property class one?
Yeah, through you as chair. That would be done by MPAC based on a number of different factors. And somewhat to your second point, it's not necessarily the zoning of a certain type of property, but it's use that would be the factor in determination. And I can be corrected, but in the case of storage, similar to what we had discussions with in the context of our development charges study, that would generally be on the commercial side as MPAC has assessed it.
Anything further?
No, I appreciate the insight. That helps clarify. Thank you.
Excellent. Other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposition? None. Carried. That'll bring us to new business and inquiries. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I know this is a bit out of sync, but I did mean to bring up a question under new business in infrastructure when I was chairing it, but I was processing something from just prior. I just wanted to bring up that at the last IS meeting, there was discussion about a pilot project at Bay Beach to allow paddleboards and kayaks in a program for the 2024 season. And I was just wondering, and I should have asked this under infrastructure portion, but I was wondering if the director could provide an update to council on the proposed operational change and if anything is required or needed from council in order to proceed, if that could be allowed.
Well, Councillor Lewis, you wish to fly through your portion so that I get to do extra work this evening. But you know, I am in a giving.
He'll be docked at the next meeting.
I'm in a giving mood this evening, and we can make that happen.
I'm going to pull a mulligan on that one.
And we are going to whom for an answer there?
Director Walsh, if we could.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the last Infrastructure Services Business Subcommittee, Councillor Lewis brought up that he has had a number of requests for stand-up paddle boards, SUPs as they'll be called, at Bay Beach. Our current policy within the roped area is that no watercraft are allowed, period. Any watercraft is something that floats. A piece of wood is a watercraft if you're on it. It was brought in quite a while ago, that policy, basically in terms of safety for the swimming public in there. It has worked very well to this point. Just a little bit of further background on that. When the Bay Beach Master Plan was developed back in the mid-teens for the development of the property, there was considerable consultation with the public, and the thoughts were at that time to stay with the existing policy, which was no watercraft in the area. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, Councillor Lewis brought up a question if this could be brought up on a trial basis. Staff have had discussions, and we're willing to go forward with it with a few caveats. So we would prefer that it stick to stand-up paddle boards and kayaks. That does not include canoes. I think many will agree that if there's an accident, we'd rather be hit with a lightweight kayak than a canoe. We would prefer that entry and egress from the beach is restricted to the Ashwood entrance. When you're carrying a stand-up paddleboard or a kayak through the main entrance, there are many twists and ramps to negotiate there, so it's for ease of access. We would prefer that any watercraft allowed would be restricted. There would be restrictions on time use. On 9 non-prime days, these are spelled out in our operating procedures for the base, so for the beach, sorry. Non-prime days, they would be allowed all day long. We feel the beach isn't busy enough that it would restrict use of the beach. So when you come out of the water with your paddleboard or your kayak, you can lie it beside your towel. On prime days, we would seek that use ends at 11 a.m. and can recommence on 6 p.m. So you can use it before 11 or after 6. Prime days, Saturday, Sunday, I think Fridays are in there as well. Holidays, the beach is very busy. We want to try and keep it as safe as possible. So restriction on time. Further, we'll put up a QR code on the beach that patrons can undertake a survey. We'll try and restrict it somehow so that you can only take the survey once. This will be a trial basis, and finally, we'll come back, as we always do in the fall, with an operating report on successes and opportunities for Bay Beach, and make a recommendation in council at that time whether to continue on with this or identify any issues for improvement. So if we're willing to go forward, this is a policy that's been endorsed by council numerous times. I would look for council to provide direction to staff to undertake these measures.
Thank you, Director Walsh. Your Worship.
Yeah, so what is the policy? You mentioned, at the outset, you mentioned the no boating within the cordoned off area. Does the policy also specifically restrict any type of watercraft?
That's what the policy says, strictly, watercraft.
Yeah, okay, so then there'd need to be an amendment to the policy. And is the amendment something that would reflect what you've just advised council?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay, I'll leave that to Councillor Lewis.
Okay, good question, if I can have the chair back, or the floor back, because I did have a question. You gave the chair up. I gave up the chair, I had the floor was taken, but now I'm back. What would be the timeline for starting the public consultation as well as the pilot if council gives its blessing on this operational change, pilot project?
Through the chair, I think informally we can undertake Operation ASAP. Formally, we would wait for the policy change. With respect to the survey, again, it's as soon as we can get a sign made up with a QR code and develop appropriate questions, and we'd carry that on until the end of summer.
Thank you, and just you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move something if we need to. I'm just, I guess, seeking some direction on how we do that. Is it just a motion to do what Director Walsh has explained to council in terms of a pilot project for the 2024 season to come back with comments after the tourism season's over?
Councillor Noyes.
That's not what I understood. I understood that first we have to change the policy.
The
So,
motion would be to amend the policy.
I just did go through all of what he just said, but I think staff's clear in terms of their position. I think we've heard it clear unless someone has questions.
well, then
I
that's,
would be
I
looking to
guess
put a motion
that's
on the
my
floor.
concern. This is under and I support it with a few caveats more than as Mr. Welch has said, but I do think that there's some other issues that we haven't touched base on yet. Like, I don't want to, say, okay, that's fine. So I don't know, we discuss it now, or we discuss it later, or if it comes back to us. I know timing is an issue because summer's here, basically. My concern is, okay, so can I discuss this now?
I think we are. Go.
Okay, so it's 11 o'clock on a prime day. I gotta take my paddle boat out the water. It's a prime day. Where do I put my paddle boat? Do I take up the beach with it? Because before you said you put the paddle boat on the sand and you put your towel beside it. Do we do that on prime days too?
Mr. Chair, on prime days at 11 a.m., watercraft have got to get off the beach. They're not allowed on the beach.
Okay.
Out of the water, off the beach.
As per the current rules.
Okay, so they're okay, I thought they were still gonna just take it and put it on the beach. Okay, so they're gone. Okay, that was my big issue, but they will never be allowed within the roped area, right? Like what the swimmers are. There'll be a section that they can access the lake and come back and forth. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just through you expanding on what Councillor Noyes said. So I'm just trying to get some clarification here because I actually did hear from this from some Crystal Beach residents as well. And Councillor Lewis and I didn't have time to touch base to discuss this. So it's interesting this is all coming down, and I'm glad it is. With respect to that 11 a.m. time, and I can certainly understand that on our peak days, there are some very peak days at Bay Beach, and we're certainly don't want people tripping over, kayaks or paddle boarders or whatever else that we have sitting on the beach. But if someone were to enter before 11 a.m., what do we envision would happen if they're still out on the water at noon? Would they be able to get out and they would have to remove the paddle boat and get it off Bay Beach? Or are we going to say, no, you can't, come ashore here? Are we going to send you somewhere else? That's just what I'm trying to wrap my head around here. I think this is a good idea. This is just more in case I get asked questions from the residents who brought this to me, what I'm going to tell them.
And
Yes,
that was
Councillor
part
Lewis.
of the discussion with staff. Currently, if someone has a paddleboard and they enter before the beach opens, they still have to come in. And quite often, they're being told they're getting in trouble for doing something that they were permitted to do before a certain time. And when they're leaving, the staff are doing their job by saying you can't have these here. So I would interpret it to be the same as you have to leave the property.
Your Worship.
So I'm just wondering, does it make sense on prime days to have a period up to 11 o'clock where there would be the ability to bring your paddleboard or your kayak on to the beach, then you have to get off? On a busy summer day where it's warm, 11 o'clock, the beach may very well be full. So I'm just wondering whether on prime days, it should simply be, you can come on the beach at 6 o'clock. And then we don't get into this situation about, oh, it's Saturday, I can't do this. I thought I could do it, and then there's just confusion.
And if I can continue, and certainly the director can jump in if the chair allows. That was part of the discussion. Part of the discussion also was there are a number of people that work flex hours where the normal time frame does not work. And I think this bylaw speaks more specifically to the locals. But I think when we say kayak or paddleboard can enter the beach, at no point can they leave the paddleboards or kayaks on the beach. It's accessing the beach to go to the water, doing their water event, and then leaving the property. There was some discussion about potentially maybe some spots where they could leave it on the uplands, but I'm going to leave that certainly with staff for what they would recommend. But my interest here is to allow patrons that have either live in the area bringing a flotation device like a paddleboard to be able to access the water, because currently they can't go anywhere between Point Abano and Waterfront Park, which I don't think is acceptable. And certainly if someone brought them on their vehicle well, when they're not using them, they can put them back on their vehicle. So I by no means am trying to say let them on the beach. I guess what I should say is access the beach so they can get to the water is what we're trying to achieve here.
So if I could just for further clarification, so I show up 8 o'clock on Saturday, beautiful day, I go out into the water. Guess I'm not gonna be out there for 4 hours, but let's suppose I come in at 10:30. I go out, I'm out there for 45 minutes. It's after 11 o'clock. I wanna come in, can I cross the beach?
Right now, you can still do that. Put your kayak in before 6 in the morning, and you could come back at any time and still walk through to go back.
You just can't go the other way.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Dubanow, then Councillor Noyes.
No, and thank you very much. Just to add to this discussion, I think it's a good discussion we're having. I've had this brought up in the context of tourism, and that whole Point Abano Bay type area is actually some fantastic water. You see windsurfers out there. We have surfers out there. There's been an interest of, I've been hearing from people who want to kayak in that water because of the unique geography and the hydrology of the area. So, on the busy days, I wouldn't want to see us lose that, because we may have people who actually visit and come to Crystal Beach knowing that they can at least get out before 11 a.m. And we let them back on. That's why I asked. I don't want them to be told, well, you got to paddle all the way to the other side or the other way. But I think there's an opportunity here, and I hope we closely study this and we look at it and maybe capture where people are coming from, how long they're staying, get some good data here, because I had a number of individuals bring this up to me within the context of the tourism and how they, as accommodation operators, were hearing from visitors saying they couldn't get their kayak to the water. They were being turned away at Bay Beach, and I'm really happy we're doing this. I just hope we get some good data. Maybe it's not a lot of people, and it's just an issue of the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or maybe we do have a lot of individuals who have a lot of interest in this, and maybe we need to look at something more formalized. But I'm glad this is moving forward. It's almost one of those great minds think alike type situations. I just hope we get some really good data, because if we have an opportunity here and a lot of individuals coming in to do this, we may be able to perhaps finesse what we do and better accommodate them if it's a tourist draw to the area. So let's just get some good data on this so we have a report for the fall. Thank you.
Councillor Noyes, you have something else to add?
Yeah, it's just about, so we have a paddle boarder, and they're out there, and I support, I think it's a good direction we're going into. But what responsibility do we have, if any, in regards to making sure that they have the appropriate equipment, like life jackets or whatever? I know if a boat goes out there and they don't have that's not us that imposes it, but if we, do we have any responsibility in regard to making sure they have a life jacket?
Yeah, and just offer, if I can, Mr. Chair, I don't think that is our responsibility. If you're operating a watercraft of any kind, it's the operator's responsibility to have their.
Taking enforcement.
And that would be.
That's it. It's not going to be up to us to enforce the fact that they need a life jacket or whatever. I know it's their responsibility, but I'm more concerned about enforcement.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
As a boater, enforcement is the responsibility of the various police forces.
Your Worship.
Yeah, just on that point, we may want to make sure that there's some signage that makes it clear that if you go out there with your paddleboard or your kayak, this is at your risk. I don't know, we may want to get some legal advice on that.
Okay, well, we'll take that under advisement. Anything else? Madam Acting Clerk, do you have sufficient information here, stand-up paddleboards only, and kayaks, entry and egress on the Ashwood, the non-prime days, 11 to 6, they're not allowed, QR code. I just want to make sure you've got enough for a motion here. Yep, good, okay. All right, any other questions? All those in favor? Any opposition? That's carried. And I will continue if there's any other inquiries or new business. No? Anything on the business status report? Both infrastructure service and corporate and community services are now closed. Your worship, back to you.
Fine, you get twice the pay for your service tonight. Okay, so now we have some items to be dealt with in closed session. Can I have a motion to go into closed session? Councillor Lewis, any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we're back in the council chambers, and Councillor Lewis, you have the resolution where we rise and reconvene in open session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself that council does now go back into open session on the wrong side. Moved by myself that council does now rise and reconvene from closed session at 8:36 p.m. with report that council approves the closed session minutes of May 27th, 2024, and that council approves confidential report PDS 45, 2024, and authorizes staff to proceed as directed in closed session. And 11.3, that council authorize staff to proceed as directed in closed session. 11.4, that council authorize staff to proceed as directed in closed session.
So just for clarity, I don't believe that we've approved PDS 45, 2024. We've directed staff to do something, and it's been deferred to the June 24th meeting.
Would that not be as directed?
Well, I think it needs to be clear, well, A, we didn't approve the report, and so I'm more or less talking to the acting clerk as well. We didn't approve that. It's been deferred to June the 24th, and staff is to proceed as directed. So can you make that change, Madam Clerk, and then Councillor Lewis will have that in front of him?
So I will start over again.
Yes, well, you just need to go back to 11.2.
Going back to 11.2, that council defer report PDS 45 2024 to June 24th, 2024, and authorize staff to proceed as directed in closed session.
Okay, you've covered these others. Any questions or comments? Everybody clear? All those in favor? Thank you very much, Councillor Lewis. That takes us to scheduling of meetings. Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just pulling my calendar up here. So on Wednesday, June 12th at 1 p.m. in Conference Room 1, the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee will be meeting. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend the meeting, but I'm sure they will do great work in my absence.
Anyone else? Councillor Christensen.
On Tuesday, June 18th, at 3 p.m., the Community Healthcare Services Committee will be meeting in Town Hall, and at 4:30, the Fort Erie Public Library Board will be meeting at the Centennial Branch on Central Avenue.
Okay, any others? If none, Councillor Dubanow, if I can pull you away from your schedule.
Yes, Your Worship. I would like to move that council and committee adjourn at 8:39 p.m. this evening.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone.